We were recently treated to a story within Microsoft, which was Satya's book, Hit Refresh. It hit the shelves in September 2017. Within his book, he talks about AI as being a core component of Microsoft's future and vision. Could you talk to us a little bit about that and what that means to Microsoft?
Yeah, I think in the book, there was chapter 6 of the book was called Beyond the Cloud, and Satya touched on 3 technology trends that he thinks, or we think as a company, are going to change the landscape of our livelihoods, frankly, of the industry, but also just of society. And it was AI, mixed reality, and quantum. And AI is probably the most near-term one of those in some ways, that it's probably the hottest topic in the technology industry right now. But ironically, it's been around for about 50 years. But over the last 3 or 4 years, 3 things have come together, which is the combination of big data, coming from all of these devices that we have out there, all of these sensors, all of these PCs, phones, just throwing off huge amounts of data. You combine that with the cloud, almost infinite compute capability, and then that combined with some very recent breakthroughs and some algorithms around AI, in particular a field of machine learning, and in particular within machine learning, a field called deep neural networks. And all of that has led to some massive breakthroughs in how computers can start to see, hear, understand, and recognize the world in the same way that humans do.
Could you talk to us a little bit about AI's interoperability with IoT? How are these things connected?
Yeah, I think that in many ways is almost one of the hottest topics in AI right now. And even recently, we made some announcements around how we are putting AI capability right down into the edge. Satya, back at our developer conference last year at Build, talked about the evolving worldview of Microsoft, where previously we talked about mobile first, cloud first, and we evolved that to talk about the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge. And that was specifically talking to this notion of we now have these billions of sensors out in all kinds of different environments, whether it's literally out in a farmer's field, or whether it's on an oil rig, or whether it's on devices in a hospital, medical type devices. Increasingly, all of these devices have compute capability and enough compute capability to be able to do artificial intelligence. So that is going to become a very important trend around AI and machine learning, which maybe for the last few years has been in the cloud, is now moving out to the edge onto these IoT devices.
And could you give a couple of examples as to how AI-enabled IoT is transforming industries?
I think a great one is farming. We have a project here at Microsoft called Farm Beats. And what that looks to do is, if you think about a typical farm environment, it's a very, it's a big landscape, literally a big landscape. And what farmers are interested in is how can they get more precise? In fact, they call it precision agriculture. And they think about how can I get information about the soil temperature, the soil density, moisture. All of that information is vital information for them to think about when do I plant crops, when do I change my rotation of my crops in my field. Increasingly what farmers are doing is they're getting that information from sensors, IoT sensors that they put out into the field. Now, that isn't an environment where you often have a consistent connectivity to the cloud. And so you want to be able to do some of that computing right down on the sensors, sometimes be able to store that on the sensors in a world where you might have limited connectivity, or a world where you might have spotty or sporadic connectivity. So that's driving this need to say, instead of having to have sensors out in a field that are constantly connected to the cloud to do your AI compute in the cloud, is to say, literally, how do we do AI, in this case, quite literally down in the field?
So given all of the advancements that will be coming and are here already with machine learning, AI, and IoT, how is Microsoft safeguarding the future of employment, skills, capabilities for the next wave of innovators who will come into the job market?
I think it's definitely a concern that's out there. I think that there is a growing conversation around what does AI mean in terms of automation, and automation often leads to job loss or job displacement. And so I think it's incumbent upon technology leaders like ourselves and others in the industry, in combination with with government and with other institutions, to say there's a process we're going to need to go through that often happens with these technology revolutions that we've seen over decades and hundreds of years. Whenever there is a technology revolution, some roles get displaced, but also completely new roles get created. Roles around how do we look at bias inside of AI. So literally there are going to be new jobs that are created that we'd never even thought of around AI. So really, I think the job to do is to recognize that there will be some job displacement, that there is going to be a need for retraining. There's huge opportunity in AI, and there are going to be a whole set of new jobs that we can't even think about right now that are going to emerge over the next 3 to 5 years.
Within Microsoft, what can we expect to see within the next 6 months to a year when we think about AI-enabled IoT and the developments that we'll be bringing to market?
It really goes back to the mission of the company, to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. So how do we put this capability in the hands of everybody, not just in developed nations, not in large farming environments? If I go back to farming, we looked at that technology and have deployed it actually into small farms in India where there's much less capability, much less connectivity. And so I think really the ambition there is, how do we take this amazing capability of IoT, of AI, of the cloud, and continue to drive down the cost.